Frutos TV. This is my first fruit video, and today we're going to be talking about love. I know, I don't want to do it, but I felt like it was necessary. I felt like it was God's time, and I have somewhat of an experience with it, so we're going to get into it. Frutos is a channel that is focused on living our lives as Jesus did through the fruits of the Spirit. So we want to embrace the 9 fruits of the Spirit, which are love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Before we get into today's message, I wanted to share a story. And this story is going to kind of set base for our first point. So we're going to be talking about 2 points today. The first one is our love with God. The second one is our love to people. So I wanted to share an experience that happened to me a couple weeks back. It kind of allowed me to see how I had never really experienced what true love was. So what had happened was, oh my god, I'm so awkward. Okay, so when I was 15, 16 years old, I used to have these weird chest pains that would happen every now and then. I had a history of asthma, so at first I didn't really pay much attention to it, but it was just kind of uncomfortable to the point where I wanted to go to the doctor because I believe it had been lingering for about 2 weeks and it wasn't really going away. So I went to the doctor. I asked them what was going on with me, because I had these weird pains. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I felt like whenever I wanted to go to sleep, I just couldn't relax. I couldn't really go about my day without having that weird sensation in my chest. So he had told me that it was this built up anxiety, and he had told me that sometimes due to asthma, I think it's just kind of like a thing where you can use your inhaler, and the inhaler kind of opens up your lungs. It gives you a better ability to breathe. So he recommended me to keep using my inhaler. But not only that, he also recommended me to just exercise a little bit more and just kind of try to take things slow and not get too stressed. Which is funny because it's like, what kind of 15-year-old is going to have enough stress in their life to where they're having like anxiety? So anyway, it eventually went away. I can't say when or how, but it did linger for about a month or so, and I never got them back. I'm lying. I'm so lying. Oh my gosh. No, I did go through that. I went through that again when I was like in my I'm still in my early 20s, but when I was like 20, 21, it did happen again. Anyway, so I've had history of this anxiety coming in and out. And recently, about a month or 2 ago, I had the same weird chest pains happening again. So I knew exactly what it was because, again, I'm familiar with it now. But I kind of didn't pay attention to it because I knew that I was going through my season, and I knew that God was doing things in my life. I was purging. I was really just removing everything that wasn't for me anymore, and just being more open to God's will versus my will. So I was like, what on earth could I be anxious about right now? Like, what could have me so stressed to the point where I'm going through this again? And I kind of brushed it off. I didn't really think about it, but it was there. And I think at that point it had been like 2 days and it hadn't gone away. And every time I get these like lingering anxiety. I can't sleep very well. I can't breathe very well. I start breathing how I'm breathing now because I get anxious and I get nervous and I get stressed. So it was a rough 2 days. And on the third day is where it really hit me, because I woke up like at 2 in the morning. I think it was like a Wednesday morning, with the worst stomach pain I have ever felt to this day. And I can't explain it, but it was just a combination of stomach cramps with nausea, with like dizziness and cold sweats and like shaking. It was super bad, and I just knew that I had to go use the bathroom or I had to like throw up or something. But there was a point where it was so bad that I wanted to call my brother and be like, dude, like, take me to the doctor, like, take me to the ER right now, because I feel like I'm about to pass out. But I was able to go to the bathroom and throw up. And I came back into my room and I drank some water, I took some ibuprofen, and I think I knocked out like around 4 in the morning. That same day I had to be at work at 7:45, so I only slept like 3 hours. But anyway, the following morning I was fine. Like I didn't have the dizziness, I didn't have the nausea or anything, but I still had that little chest pain. So I don't know why, but I was just ignoring it. I know, like it just didn't make sense, but I was just ignoring it. And I texted one of my leaders. I asked her, like, hey, do you have any experience with anxiety? Because this happened. I told her what had happened that earlier that morning. I told her that I had gone through this whole thing, and I had told her about my past, how I've had that lingering pain in my chest a couple times before. And she told me what any good leader would. Like, why don't you pray about it? Why don't you ask God what's going on? And I don't know why, but I just didn't want to get God involved. I know it sounds dumb, but there was just that one thing where I'm like, I don't want to ask God about it, because in my own human mind, I'm thinking like, there's no way this could be spiritual, because to my knowledge, there's nothing I can pinpoint that is going wrong or that I'm stressed about or that I'm anxious about. So why would I ask God, you know? So dumb. Anyway, she was kind enough to call me later that afternoon after I got off of work, and she prayed with me on the phone. And it was really nice of her to do that, honestly. You know who you are. So as we were praying, I had played the song Lean Back by Maverick City, which I love. I love their music. I love their music. And, you know, I was praying. I was asking God, like, Lord, please reveal to me what I'm so anxious about. And, you know, the song was kind of just in the background. I wasn't really, like, singing along to it or really paying attention to it, but I knew that it was that song, if that makes sense. And in that moment where I'm like, okay, I just need to be quiet for a second and I just need to hear God. I've said my prayer and everything. I just need to hear what God has to say now. It was towards the end of the song, and it was repeating that verse where it was like, I never knew what love was. Yeah. Never knew what love was. That. And that hit me so hard, because God in that moment was telling me, you don't know what true love is. You have no idea. All your past experiences, all the trauma, all your failed relationships, that wasn't true love. That's not the real sacrificial love that I have for you. And that really blew me away, because I kind of started remembering all the times that I thought I knew what love was. And he was right. And I just remember praying, like, okay, God, if I don't know what love is, like, tell me what I need to do. Like, I need to know, how do I understand what your true love is? So as we were wrapping up the prayer, because my leader was still on the phone with me, I started asking God, like, Lord, what do I need to do? Or what path do I need to take? Do I need to pray? Do I need to fast? Do I need to read a certain verse in order for me to understand your love? And I just kept hearing this number 16 in my head. 16, 16. And later I understood that I had to do like a 16-day fast. So I did it. I was off of social media. I started my fast doing the 8-hour like time frame where I just don't eat, and then I eat like at night, and that really didn't work well for me. I don't know what it was, but it just did not sit well with me. I felt really like fatigued. I didn't feel like, I don't know, it felt bad. So I prayed about it, and I decided to do actually it was, hold on, the first part of my fast was, oh my god, I can't do math, 6 days. Okay, the first part of my fast was 6 days of the 8-hour time frame where I wasn't eating, and then the last 10 days was my Daniel fast, where I pretty much ate vegan, no sugars, no meat, no dairy, no yeast, and I just ate vegetables and fruit. I made my own bread. Yeah, it's crazy. So I did that fast, and I want to talk about my Daniel experience because that's a whole nother thing. But anyway, towards the end of my fast, I think it was maybe day 14 or 15, I was like, okay, I never asked God why 16 days, right? So I looked it up. Like, does the number 16 have any significance in the Bible? And it took me to this verse. This is 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 4. It says, "Love is patient and kind. Love is not jealous or boastful or proud or rude. It does not demand its own way. It is not irritable. It keeps no record of being wronged. It does not rejoice about injustice, but rejoices whenever the truth wins out. Love never gives up, never loses faith, is always hopeful, and endures through every circumstance." Those are 16 things that God says about love. I know, I was blown away. So I really understood that God wanted to show me how his love is and the way that he describes it, and how the Bible is able to explain exactly what love is. So during that fast, up until the end and even until now, I can really say that God's love has definitely been patient. It's been kind. It's not boastful or proud or rude or everything that the verse says. And not only that, but there is a joy that comes to my heart every morning. And I can't say that I don't have my bad days. I mean, there's days where I really do feel like I'm gonna be alone on this earth forever, But the joy doesn't leave, because right when those thoughts of loneliness, of insecurity, of unstableness, of I'm gonna die alone, when those lies come to my head and I go to his word and I read what his word has to say about who he is, what he says I am, the way that he feels about me, the way that he loves me, they vanish. They no longer have a place in my heart. So I feel like I'm still getting to understand God's love. It's not 100% just yet. I can't say like, oh, I'm an expert on what God's love is, because I'd like to say that I'm not, because there's always room for improvement. There's always more that we have to learn about God and what He says that He is. I'm gonna make sure that this is still recording. My camera stopped recording, so I'm gonna try to hurry up before the natural light is gone. Okay, so I was talking about how I've been feeling very joyful every day, how there's times where I do have my sad moments. I have my days where it's just kind of like, oh, you know. But aside from that, God has been so faithful. He's really been showing me how He loves me, how whenever I trust Him, whenever I put Him first, everything comes after. I know that there's people who may never really experience what true love is. And that's why it's so important for us to talk about God's love, to show His love, and not only that, but to love other people. So this is the second point that I wanted to touch, which is how we should love one another. The book of First John, is that a thing? We're going to go to First John. We're going to go to chapter 3, and we're going to start at verse 10. So it says, "So now we can tell who are the children of God and who are of the devil. Anyone who does not live righteously and does not love other believers does not belong to God. This is the message you have heard from the beginning. We should love one another. We must not be like Cain, who belonged to the evil one and killed his brother. And why did he kill him? Because Cain had been doing what was evil, and his brother had been doing what was righteous. So don't be surprised, dear brothers and sisters, if the world hates you. If we love our brothers and sisters who are believers, it proves that we have passed from death to life. But a person who has no love is still dead. Anyone who hates another brother or sister is really a murderer at heart, and you know that murderers do not have eternal life within them. We ought to know what real love is because Jesus gave up His life for us. So we also ought to give up our lives for our brothers and sisters. If someone has enough money to live well and sees a brother or sister in need but shows no compassion, how can God's love be in that person?" And the rest of this chapter, this little part, just talks a little bit more about loving one another, but I really want to go back to verse 10. So chapter 3, verse 10. It says, "So now we can tell who are children of God and who are children of the devil. Anyone who does not live righteously and does not love other," this version, the NLT version, says believers, but in Greek it's translated to brothers, "does not belong to God." So it's really interesting to see how there's so many people out there who are like, "I'm a child of God, God first" on their bio and stuff like that, but you can clearly tell who's the children of God and who is not. And it's by the way that they treat other people. Not only can we be proclaiming to know and to accept the love of God, but we also have to go out and love other people. And by loving other people, it can simply be just by acknowledging them. I mean, I had a problem, I had a situation where I had a friend. We're still friends. I'm not saying we stop being friends, but I had a friend that was going through something, and I knew she was going through something. I mean, I wasn't, unaware, but where I fell short of showing my love to her is by acknowledging her, by understanding, by reaching out, seeing how her and her family were doing, versus me just saying like, "Oh, I know she's going through this, but it's not my problem, so I'm not gonna reach out." Like, that's not okay. Love isn't always monetary. It's not always about buying someone something. It's not always about giving gifts or just spending time. It's not just about those things, but it's also about acknowledging one another. It's about going out and knowing, when you know, like, this person is going through it, this person is sick, this person needs prayer, and you go and you show that act of love towards that person. You go visit that person, you go pray with them in faith, you bring them something. If you know, maybe it's like their birthday, or it just hasn't been their week, it hasn't been their month, it hasn't been their year even, and you want to just show that act of faith. It really makes us stand out as the children of God. And then the second part, it says, anyone who does not live righteously. So we go back to that verse, or we go back to that first point of loving God. When you love God, you live righteously. You turn away from sin and you go his way. And then it says, anyone who does not live righteously and does not love other brothers does not belong to God. So it's a 2-in-1 situation. You can't just be like, well, I love God, I know God, I've accepted Jesus, but that person gets on my nerves, so I'm not gonna go talk to them. That's not the way that God's love works. That's not how we represent kingdom. We can't just be one-sided. Today in church, it really just kind of confirmed with me a lot of what I had been reading today. And man, I don't know about you, but I love when God does that. Like, I love when I read something and then I hear it from like the pastor or like in another preaching, and it's just like confirmation. Se me olvidó. Oh, oh my gosh. It just like snapped into place. Okay, so we were talking about the topic of there's only one way, right? There's one way, one truth, one life. So we're really kind of going back to basics on faith and how God wants us to go into deeper waters and these awesome topics. And our pastor was talking about how there's many people who make the mistake of just repenting, not even repenting, but just I guess repenting, yeah, of just repenting and like accepting Jesus, and that's it. But they don't go beyond that. They don't start walking into discipleship. They don't go into the deeper waters. They don't take initiative to really live out the gospel. And God tells us we have to go out and make disciples. Salvation and Christianity and living for God isn't just about proclaiming Jesus as your Lord and Savior. It's also about being that extension cord of heaven. And I love that phrase that the pastor used, because it really shows us that God wants us to bring heaven down here on earth. And in order for him to do that, there has to be a medium. But when Jesus came, he was that medium. He was that representation of God here on earth. And in order for us to be that extension cord, the pastor had given a really good example of how in Christmas lights, at least the older ones, where if one little bulb went out, like the whole string went out. We're kind of like that, each one of us is the little bulbs. And when one of them just isn't working, it almost breaks that link. Obviously, God is always going to find different ways. But the more we link up, the more that we are connected, the more that we are walking in the same purpose as believers, as followers of Christ, the more we can reach out to the world. This is verse 18. It says, "Dear children, let's not merely say that we love each other. Let's show the truth by our actions. Our actions will show that we belong to the truth, so that we will be confident when we stand before God." That's powerful. If you've ever heard of the saying, actions speak louder than words, this is the verse for it. And I was listening to, again, the preaching earlier this morning, how the pastor was saying that good works does not produce faith, but faith produces good works. So when you have that love of God, when you're walking in faith, when you're walking in God's purpose, in His will, and you are ready to be a disciple of Christ, it'll be easier to do those good works, to go out and love one another. For me, it was so hard for me to love people. I don't know how many people really got to know me when I was younger. There's only a handful, because I've always been kind of like a don't talk to me, don't look at me kind of person. But I did not get along with a lot of people. It's very, very closed in. I didn't have a lot of friends. I'm getting sad. No, for real. I didn't have a lot of friends. Even within my own family, like within my own cousins, you can ask them, like, I was just always very quiet, always very to myself. And my mentality was like, if this is your problem, that is your problem. Like, I'm not getting in the middle of it. I didn't cause it. Therefore, I don't need to worry about it. I was very much that person. And as I'm getting closer to God, as I'm experiencing His love, as I'm understanding the urgency that there is for other salvation, there is this abundance of love that I just want to give out to people. And I say that in the most humble way possible, I promise. But what I'm trying to say is that if you're someone who is just naturally cold-hearted, you naturally just keep to yourself, you don't know how to be that hug or that extension cord of heaven, the more you read His word, the more you understand His love, the more you understand His heart, you start to understand, okay, I need to give to others. I need to love others. Those are the two things that I wanted to go over. Number one, to really, really ask God, Lord, do I know what true love is? Have I been blinded by all these past experiences? Have I been misled? Have I been misinformed? In order for me to go through this process, in order for God to change my perspective of what His love is, I had to go through that little anxiety moment where I had to literally pray about it and ask God, like, what is this thing that is like crashing with my spirit, that is not allowing me to have peace? And that's when I really understood that God wanted me to fully understand what His true love was. Secondly, we have to love one another. We have to share the gospel. We have to read our Bibles. We have to be that extension cord of heaven. So yeah, guys, I really appreciate you watching this video. I hope it was good information. I hope it was encouraging for you to seek out love. There's tons of verses about love and how much love really means to our beliefs and to who we are. And more than anything, just remember that the sacrifice of Jesus Christ was based off of love. It's the most powerful thing there is. And I encourage you guys to love God and love one another. And yeah, thank you for watching.